So just starting with the painting stage on this one, it was primed with Mr. Finishing Surfacer 1500 Grey, which is what I'm liking at the minute from Mr. Hobby, and it gives a nice smooth finish. So after checking everything was in order, I've painted it with this brown colour, which is a kind of a mix with some of the Tamiya browns. It's nothing specific, it's just trying to, using the internet to try and kind of get a nice, it's dew point colours I think they're called, so you've got the brown and the green from that, so I was just trying to colour match it. And then it was time to have a go at this camouflage pattern, which on the face of it looks really quite simple. However, it is a bit tricky because it's hard edge camo. Even when you see some of the reference pictures, and there are quite a lot of them, it's extremely hard edge camo. There's no feathering right down to the smallest part. So the only way I know how to get around that is either using the masking tape, which I wasn't really happy to do, or using the white tack like I'm doing here and just pressing it down quite firmly, so it means that there's not a lot of bleed. But it's very easy to get yourself confused and either mask the opposite of what you want. So where you're masking the brown, where you're putting the white tack, you want to remember you're masking the brown. It's very easy to view it as what you're putting down is where the green's going to be, and then when you peel it off, obviously there's a whole load of green missing because you've included the white tack in your mind as being green. So just something you want to check. And then I noticed in the scheme that it's got the roundels were left, which is what I just showed in that previous clip. So when it was painted up, they actually left a clear circle for the roundels to be painted on, and of course this was not going to be using that because it was a Chinese bird, so they were just left blank. So to do that, I used the cricket cutter, and just cut some circle masks out of some masking film and stuck them on in the right place, and then continued with the white tack. And once I was happy that the white tack was all in the right area, I'm then using washi tape here just to fill in the gaps because it's cheap. That's why, 5 or 6 rolls I think you can pick up for £1, and it's perfect stuff for modelling because it's very tacky, but at the same time it doesn't hold very tight, so it easily lifts, so there's no worry about peeling paint or anything. And actually the masking tape I've used on the underside, I almost had a problem with it peeling the paint. Thank goodness I used MRP, and that's the point. The underside is pretty much just a slightly lightened version of MRP ROM 76 because it's not meant to be the grey. It was a sky blue used on these Chinese P40 Warhawks. And then so that was sorted. It was time to peel that off, and again it looks like I'm being a bit rough here because it's sped up, but you want to be a little bit gentler than what it makes it look like here, peeling this off, because it's worth being careful. And you'll see when it's all off that the roundel masks worked really well. I was really pleased with those, and it gives the correct effect that I was after. It's always tricky doing something like this sort of masking job, but it is nice when it pays off. It was a sort of couple sessions getting this sorted, but you've just got to kind of persevere really, and get on with it. So that's what I did. And we're just getting it off now, and all we've got left really is the roundels to take off, and I had to get under those with tweezers to peel them off. You've got to be careful not to rip any of the paint as you're doing that. And there you go. It's an effective scheme. It's quite sort of tight edge, and I noticed there was a couple of bits that this is the unfortunate side of it. You've got all this waste. I've saved some of the white tack there, but the majority of it does need to be chucked, unfortunately. And then I'm just checking. There was painted over places to put the tigers on, and I've noticed that some of the camouflage I haven't done quite enough, so I'm just using the white tack again, just doing it like spot masking, I suppose. Just doing a little bit, and then I spray the green in tight after putting a bit of washi tape around there. So before you take the roundel mask off, you want to be sure that you're happy with everything. You can see there in the background, that's the finished scheme, and the roundels there, certainly on the left wing, you can see how nice it is to have that sharp area there for the masking. And then it's the beginning of decals. So I did gloss coat this one. Some of the this is actually going to be used, this footage, for a decal tutorial as well that I've done. So I've done this one is glossed, and then I did another model that was decal straight onto matte. I'm happy to do both, but I'm finding that I'm preferring to work on a gloss coat at the minute. So that's what I use with this, and we're just starting on the wheels. So you get circle decals to go on the wheel hubs, which give you those 3 colours, which makes it look quite nice, quite an iconic feature of the Flying Tiger birds, and they went on nicely enough. You had to use some setter, so I've got micro set and solvaset I'm using here, and my preferred way of doing it is place the decal, put on the micro set on top of it, not underneath it. And I assume it would soak through, and then when that's set a little bit, I then go over it with the micro sol to let it kind of go down into the details. And if there's any issues and I can see that it hasn't sunk into the details, I'll either use a blade or a pin or something. On these wheels, for instance, there was 4 rivets, so I pushed a pin into where those rivets are, a bit more solvaset, and it sucks the decal straight into the hole, which is what you want. And I've got all the other decals cut out as well. So there's the prop blade decals, which went on really nice. I cut around the carrier film there to make it easier. That was all one block, but I just cut it apart. And then it was the star of the show, the tiger mouth. Now there's no real easy way around this. You just got to kind of keep going. This took really about an hour to get this in a way that I was happy with. But as it's the main feature of the model, it's worth spending the time on it, I feel. So I'll leave you with this now, with a bit of music, and you can see my attempt at putting these together, and I'll come back a bit later. Now, this red stripe on the rear of the fuselage, I tried to use it as a decal. As I said, I was doing the demonstration, but there was just no way of making that work, I'm afraid. I think it was meant to be curved, and they hadn't done that, so I decided to spray it. So it was simple enough. It was a lot easier to spray that. I got a feeling that if you want something to go straight around a fuselage like that, then it has to be curved. I may be wrong, but it's not curved, it's just a straight line on the decal sheet, so I don't think there's any way you can ever make that work. It's always going to have a crease somewhere. But maybe you could let me know in the comments below whether you've done this and you've done it successfully, or there would be a method of getting that done. But spraying it was just as easy. And actually it's meant to be a dull red, which I think I got spot on here. Just used the Tamiya red over a very light misting of white just to settle it down, otherwise it would have gone on quite nicely on the underside where it's almost a white colour, but the camouflage would have showed through. So I let quite a lot of it show through, and it's given this dull red colour, which is almost exactly what it looks like from what I can tell, so I was pleased with that. And now that was sorted, we were ready to go on and get the rest of the decals on, which was a much more straightforward process. So the roundels. Now, this kit has been brilliant from the start. Everything's perfect. The decals are lovely. It's all, where can it go wrong? Well, there was a chap, I forget the name, who left a comment in the previous video saying, did you notice that the roundels have 11 triangles when they should have 12? And I thought, that can't be right. And I looked it up, and they are meant to have 12 points, and these decals have 11 points. So why they've done that, I'll never know. Very strange. I got to be honest, I wish I didn't know that. I do know it now. I can live with it, but it is it's a strange thing to do. And that will explain why I couldn't get these squared up, because there's not enough triangles. There's not enough points on the... there's not enough points there to make it even, because there's 11, not 12. It should be 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom, and 3 on each side. But that's not how it happens. So there we go, something to bear in mind if you're going to tackle this kit. Maybe have a look and see if you can find some aftermarket roundels. Then another iconic feature of this kit is to get the tiger on, which is the best part of it for me. That is the shark's mouth and the tiger is what this is all about. So a really exciting bit to get this on, and where I've measured it in the previous step with the white tack, it's worked perfectly, so it fits nicely in there. And I was very happy with that, very pleased, because I think you'll find that they pretty much painted the tiger to fit into that green blob that was painted on there by the ground crew. So I was very happy with that. And these decals went down very well, very nicely. I was surprised how well they went down. And just using my reference material here that I got on my phone, I'm just checking the position just to see what angle it's at. And is that actually quite an acute angle? It's pointing upwards quite a lot. So more than I perhaps would have done. There you can see in the picture. We've also got some chipping there in the wing root that I'm going to have to tackle, but that's for the next video. So as we carry on out of here, I'm just making sure that's settling down nicely, and then we've got to have a look on the other side, because there's a tiger on both sides, and there's a bit of stencil data. And here you can see that tiger's settling nicely as well. I did break the tail on that, and I've shown that in the decalling tutorial, so worth checking out, because you'll see it's unfortunately going to be a lot of this footage again, but there's a bit more that I haven't talked about, and I'll go a bit more into depth on how I've actually gone about getting these decals to conform in the way I want, because this 4 and 7 was combined with carrier film, and I've cut that off because I find it's a lot easier to avoid any problems, and it makes it look painted on. So I cut around that quite nicely. I should have cut this down, apologies, I don't know what I was doing there off camera, but I was doing something trying to get this 7 sorted, because I've cut the carrier film off. There you go. So easy thing here is to check in the reference material that the 7 and the 4 line up straight with that panel line. So regardless of what the rest of it looks like, as long as the 7 and the 4 are parallel with that line, the rest of it's okay. So it's just a matter of making sure the 7 is actually straight, and that made lining up quite easy, to be honest. It's very easy to go over the top and get a bit lost with it and think, overthink the process, but it actually went on nicely. So I did choose to leave most of the stenciling off. I just hand-picked a bit here and there, and yeah, I figured that you're not going to have seen it much in the field, and I didn't want to add it. It's my model, I chose not to. So here I'm just showing you how I like to get stuff into the panel line. So if after all of what I've done with the setting solutions hasn't worked, then I like to run through the panel lines. This is with an old airbrush needle, especially on these Airfix kits where the panel lines are quite deep. You can follow it quite well and it will just force it down nicely. And then I don't use a setting solution. I'd use a varnish. This would be before varnishing, and then I'd be looking for the varnish to seal that in, whereas the setting solution I can find almost gets under it and lifts it back out of the panel line, and then you have to go through the process again. So you know, just try the method yourself, see how you get on. That's all you can do, really. And here just showing again, just trying to force things into the panel lines. It's very noticeable there where I've got the red band that's been painted, so it's gone straight into the lines, and then you've got this 4 and 7 which is kind of floating a little bit outside of it. So I'm very keen on getting those in there. I always like to get the decals bedded down as nice as possible, because I like to get a panel line wash to run straight through it, because I think, you know, it should be treated the same. So that's the principle behind it. And that pretty much brings this to a close. We've got about a minute left, but hopefully you've enjoyed this. This is part 2 of this build, and it's been a wonderful kit, I must admit. And as I'm sat here now doing this, I've got the model unmasked, the landing gears on, the propellers on, the machine guns are on. There's nothing more to add, and I'm just in the few final stages of weathering, so we'll be getting this third and final part out before too long. So if you like what you see and you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel and stay tuned to see the rest of the videos that we've got coming. You may ask why in a minute the tail wheel is at that angle, a jaunty angle, a weird angle. Well, it's because the reference picture that I've got, which I'll show in the next video, has it at that exact angle, so I'm just kind of copying that straight off, and I imagine as it's been pulled into position or parked into position, it's turned at the last minute and put it to a full lock. So that's the reason behind it. There you can see the tail wheel. So as I say, stay tuned, and we'll be back in the next video showing you this one all the way through to completion. So thanks for tuning. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel, giving the video a like, and I'll see you in the next video.